All right, here we are, hour number 3. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you, and every Monday at this time, we welcome in my broadcast partner on the Bills Radio Network, one Eric Wood, joining us to lend us some of his thoughts on last night's slogfest through the offensive first half. My gosh, that was like dragging a bobsled through the mud. Just could not get anything going with any semblance of consistency, Eric. Fortunately, it does not cost them because the defense held up and held firm, particularly in the red zone. We'll get to that in a second. What can you put your finger on as to what is keeping Buffalo's offense from getting into the kind of rhythm we witnessed on their 3-game winning streak from week 2 to week 4, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is, but to me, it seems like early in the games, they're just not executing at a high enough level and consistently enough, which shouldn't be the issue with a veteran squad. Is as much experience as you have at quarterback, at receiver, in a number of spots, that shouldn't be the case where you're starting slow on a pretty consistent basis. When you look at 50% of the games, they've started pretty slow this year. And so, especially these last 2 weeks, when you look at what hurt them early in games, it's drops. And a lot of this happens on third down where they didn't execute up until this point, but it's drops, it's receivers falling, or you got the questionable PIs or whatever it is down the field yesterday that could have been monster plays. But it's just little things that don't allow them to move the sticks early enough in the drive. And then they end up, I think they go 3 and out, 2 out of their first 4 drives yesterday. Rewind a week ago against Jacksonville, they go 3 and out their first 2 drives of the game. And for one of the most explosive offenses in the league, that just shouldn't happen. And we wouldn't be having this conversation if the Bills won 14-9 and we just didn't know what they were capable offensively, and because they have the firepower they do. And so moving forward, it's about, okay, what's our identity as an offense? What can we rely on to get in a hot start or just to get in some type of rhythm early? Is it mixing up the tempo? Is it getting under center more? Is it running the ball more? Is it getting in more 5 wides and giving Josh some easy access throws? But, yesterday, the game plan early on was force the ball to Diggs. I mean, what was it? 11 of Josh's first 16 attempts all went to Diggs, and that's fine. I think when you have a true number 1 receiver like Diggs that wants the ball and competes like he does, you can force feed him some. Heck, a week ago in Jacksonville, I said at halftime, my halftime adjustment for the offense was to force feed Diggs. He's your best playmaker. Get him the ball as much as you possibly can. But when Wink Martindale is double teaming, true double teams, like not hey, safety help over the top, like 2 guys just chasing Diggs around. Well, to me, especially with Kincaid out yesterday, there's no kind of easy button throw for Josh if Diggs is double covered. There's no Cole Beasley anymore. It seemed like that role was going to be Kincaid. Obviously, he missed the game yesterday because of the concussion. And so they've got to find answers where they'd say, it's 2nd and 10, and they're not running a draw play for a gain of 2. It's something that they know that they can get into a manageable third down in short. And so they'll get to the drawing board this week. They'll look at the film, and they're going to learn from this. And a week ago we were saying, hey, if Cook doesn't drop the ball in the first possession, they move the sticks and who knows what happens. Yesterday, if Davis doesn't fumble on the second drive, if they don't have their feet tangled up on the first drive, you probably get a monster chunk play. They're either up by 1 or 2 scores. You start putting pressure on this Giants offense to then move the football and not play clock control. And then all of a sudden you have a totally different ball game. That's not the case, though, when you're not making those plays early.
And it looks even worse after the first 2 drives get stopped. Gabe Davis gets tripped on the first drive. You get those feet tangled up. The second one, he fumbled it after a big gainer. The third one, they get a 1st and 10 on the New York Giant 37, which was after Latavius Murray, bursts up the middle for 10 yards. So they're moving the ball. Then it's incomplete to Diggs, completed to Diggs for no gain. So now it's 3rd and 10 and incomplete to Dawson Knox. and it dies on the vine, and then they punt it from the 37-yard line, which a lot of fans are like they're off their rocker about. And they were kicking it into the scoreboard end if they decide to kick the 55-yarder, and it's my thought, Matt Smiley and Tyler Bass told coach, like, listen, from that direction going in, I was like 1 of 6 in warmups. And playing against the Giant team early, it was only 3-0 at that time, I think, or maybe it wasn't even 3-0 at that time. You're thinking, okay, you know what? Their offense is not going to move the ball on our defense. We're going to get them down there, get a 3-and-out, and get the ball right back. I think that was the mindset, because taking a coin flip, if he does miss it, which he did twice the rest of the game, you're giving the Giants a short field. I mean, that's what the reasoning was behind that, right?
Right, absolutely. And then, yesterday you don't have the defense forcing any turnovers, so you're not getting any short fields. There was no kind of cheap points in the game either, which we've gotten those at times, especially in some of those blowouts. And I'll also say this, and you'd expect this to show up the most in the red zone, but they go 2 for 2 scoring touchdowns in the red zone yesterday. The red zone, essentially the deciding factor in the game. And I generally say, if you show me touchdown, red zone percentage, and turnover battle, that'll generally give you the winner of any football game. And I know that's a cheap stat, because if you get to see 3 for 4 in the red, if someone's 75%, then yeah, of course they scored 3 touchdowns. They probably scored enough points to win. But I'll say this Bills offense, especially since week 1, but throughout this season, is adjusting to life without Josh Allen scrambling or design runs. We haven't seen a design run to Josh Allen. Heck, we're not even seeing sneaks on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. And so they're adjusting to life without Josh Allen scrambling down the field. The one late in the game where Josh misses Knox, that might be one where Josh scrambles for that first down when they're trying to run the clock out at the end. And you have other times, last week where Josh just barely overthrows Knox, which could have been a big gain. Last year, that's probably a 20-yard run by Allen. Defensive coordinators now have to assume that, Josh isn't going to be the same force with his legs because of how they're coaching him right now, which allows a different defensive philosophy than this Bills offense is used to going against. This is a major philosophy change with Josh not running the ball as much or hardly at all, really. And I'm fine with that. I'm great with that. I've came on here on plenty of Mondays and talked about how, I want to see Josh take less and less hits as his career goes. Now, when the game's on the line, when you got, playoff implications towards the end of the season, I think you'll see that dialed up. But heck, their best running plays the last few years have been zone reads, and they're not running any of those because they don't even want to give Josh the option to pull the ball and go try and get some yards himself.
One thing I got to ask you, and I said this earlier in the show, if you're going to have Josh do this and play within the scheme of the offense, he's actually what it is, basically, is him giving other guys a chance to keep him from having to put on the Superman cape. The question is, who besides Steph Diggs is going to be the guy that, helps him, right? I mean, who's going to be a guy that gets open, gives him a lane that he can depend on to keep from having to put the cape on and run for a 19-yard gain on 3rd and 12?
Yeah, I think as the season goes on, they're hoping that's Kincaid. They're hoping that Josh can build more relationship with Hardy and Sherfield. Gabe Davis, he just disappears for too long as stretches for me. Incredible playmaker, great playmaker. Love him being a part of this roster. But when we're talking a guy that just going to, hey, it's 2nd and 10. We either rush the ball for no gain on first down or we threw an incompletion. Who can get us to 3rd and 2 or move the sticks right now if they're going to truly try and take away Steph Diggs? And so understanding that teams might want to, Steph Diggs still goes for 10 and 100 yesterday, but you could see some of Wink Martindale's game plan copied the rest of the year. So who's going to be the guy that separates? And look, the Bills are going to face much tougher secondaries throughout the rest of the season than they faced yesterday as well. And so there's got to be someone that can separate. And, it can be Cook out of the backfield. Whatever it is, there's got to be more guys stepping up and truly separating. And look, I've seen the tweets today where people take a screenshot and show how open guys are and Josh isn't looking for them. And look, Josh may miss them on those plays. Maybe those guys weren't quick enough in the progression. But I'll say this. When a guy's that wide open and he's still force-feeding Diggs, you know what that shows me? That's who Josh trusts. That's who Josh, under the gun, when you're playing a team that blitzes, as high as anybody in the NFL, and you're going to have to likely make quick decisions in a game. And look, and Wink Martindale dialed it back yesterday and didn't blitz as much because, maybe that extra blitzer, they just took him and tried to double Steph. But all that being said, to me, that just shows that Josh doesn't trust a lot of the other guys.
Let's talk about the defensive effort, Eric. And, Taron Johnson, leading tackler, 15 tackles in the game, has the big play at the end, although there's some people who believe he did have a DPI on the play. I don't think there was enough to rise to the level of PI, but that's just me. And then Terrell Bernard, another solid performance. And Dorian Williams, who got the start last night, all over the field. 10 tackles in the game, made some plays, was not perfect, didn't fill every gap properly over the course of the game, but made an impact, was noticeable. What do you foresee going forward with him?
Yeah, I think he'll keep getting better and better. And we talked about it yesterday, Chris. I got to talk to Bobby Babich before the game, and he loves Dorian Williams. He knows what he's getting from Dorian Williams, and that's an absolute ball player that's going to fly around the football field and give you everything he's got. And yes, there's going to be some growing pains when you play a rookie in the middle of that defense, but at the will linebacker position, but they're one of their two off-ball linebacker positions. Is there going to be mistakes? Of course. At any position that you play a guy and he's getting his first start, there's going to be mistakes. But I loved kind of the progression from him getting some action against Jacksonville, but not even being truly in the game plan for that. He's doing show team looks for Jacksonville throughout the week and then gets thrusted into action when Milano goes down. I saw some great things from him yesterday. I'm excited about just who he is as a football player. Bernard and Taron Johnson, they actually kind of remind me of each other in the way that they play. Those guys are fearless out there. They both are, and they're impact players. And I'm sure glad both those guys are playing on our defense because they fly around. They make plays at or behind the line of scrimmage. They're active in the pass game. Both of them are. And look, Taron makes a good play at the end. He's given up 6 inches. And if he gets another PI or a hold on the play against Waller, so be it. Give him another shot, but don't give him an easy one there and make the ref make a decision there. Is he going to let that slide? He did, and you get away with one there. And I say get away with one. There's going to be contact down in the tight red zone like that anytime you throw the ball.
So you get into this spot where the Bills are now, 1 loss and then 1 win in 2 games where they started slowly on offense. Now the Bills' defense has played well and not letting up any points. But what do you think? What's the cure? How do you get this team to come out and like a house on fire, like they have done in the past? What's missing, or what can they change, if anything?
Figure out what you're doing best offensively, look at all your breakdowns, and start the game with that and get the guys ready to roll and say, look, this is what we do best. This is what we've charted, whether that's up-tempo and mixing in and out of 5 wide, whether that's Reggie Gilliam on the, getting 21 personnel, gets a big personnel out there and mix up your formations to where you're putting the defense in the bottom. Whatever it is, figure out what you're doing best offensively and get to it early. And then the defense has been playing great. Don't get me wrong, but there's times where they're letting offenses sustain drives. So then that offense sits on the sideline and not that they're in a rhythm to start with, but then you sit there forever, and it's easy to come out flat when you've been sitting on the bench for 20, 25 minutes and not been on the field. And so I think at times they can play better complementary football. I say all this, it was the offense the last 2 weeks. I'm just saying at times, whether it's a turnover, whether it's a short field, whether it's a punt return, something can just give that offense a little bit of a jolt to where the time of possession at the half, both the last couple of weeks, has been tough. Now, 2 weeks ago against Jacksonville, majority of the reason for that was injuries. Yesterday, the Giants were sustaining drives. They were getting to some 3rd and 4s. Tyrod's making quick decisions, getting the ball out of his hands and making completions. They're not scoring touchdowns. All that being said, they could still play better complementary football, but it's on the offense to start faster in games. And look, the defense can continue their high-level play, and the Bills will go back to blowing people out if they can start these games faster.
Last one, Eric, spinning it forward to Week 7, Bills at Patriots. New England, a team that, while their offense has struggled mightily, their defense holds them in games sometimes, not all the time. They've had some blowout losses, but they're still a top 10 defense that's 10th in the league in third down defense and 7th in the league in red zone defense. That's where they excel, third down and red zone. And knowing the problems that the Bills have experienced on offense the last couple of weeks, I know that we've already taken some calls from fans. They're concerned that this Sunday could play out a lot like the last two.
Yeah, and that's fine as long as the Bills get the win. And look, we want to see the Bills be sharper, but what Bills fans got to understand is most games in the NFL, whether it's the Giants, the Patriots, or you're playing the Dolphins, most games are going to come down to one score. They're tight football games into the fourth quarter. So, myself included, we can't expect the Bills to go out and blow people out each and every week. Last night was a little too close for comfort. All that being said, yeah, it likely will be a fairly tight game in New England. Do I expect the Bills to get the win? Yes. Do I expect them to score 40 and beat the brakes off the Patriots? No, because that just doesn't generally happen in the NFL. We've been spoiled at times where the Bills get on these hot streaks and just crush opponents. And, they traditionally the last few years have sat in that, top 3 in point differential at the end of the season because they have blown people out because they're so good on both sides of the ball. But yeah, I expect this to be a tight game in New England. And look, they're sitting at 1-5. Bill Belichick, he's going to have those guys ready to go because they have a lot of pride over there. And, we go into their place, which isn't always the most hostile environment. But all that being said, yeah, I do expect it to be a pretty tight game.
Give us an idea. This could be more like the Giants game that we knew if the Patriots decide to switch up quarterbacks. Malik Campbell may be in there, or Malik Cunningham may be in there. That's, I hate that for a team. You have no film on the guy except like a quarter of game last week. How does that change things for a team when you've got a different signal caller for an opponent who is absolutely desperate to get off the schneid?
Yeah, I mean, Malik, I followed him at the University of Louisville. He got that COVID year, so he felt like he was setting school records that maybe he shouldn't have just based upon being there so long. But super athlete, they tried him out in the preseason at receiver. He would, played special teams, played quarterback as well. So he is very mobile. At times it might even look closer to a wildcat offense just because he's an athlete back there, and that's the strength of his game. He does have the capability of throwing the football, but if I'm the Bills, whether it's Mac Jones or Cunningham back there with the Patriots, you got to stop the run, don't allow the big plays, kind of make them earn it. And at this point of the season, they've proven that they'll make enough mistakes to not put up many points.
Eric, thanks as always. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, man.
All right, sounds good, guys. Have a great week.